This episode of Podcast Portugal is brought to you by expatsportugal.com, your trusted online community for everything related to moving to, living in, or investing in Portugal. What really sets Expats Portugal apart is its welcoming, knowledgeable community. Whether you're just starting to explore the idea of life in Portugal or you're already settling in, you'll find live webinars, expert Q&As, member discounts, a vibrant forum, and friendly in-person meetups happening across the country. And just for Podcast Portugal listeners, you can get 15% off membership by using the code Podcast Portugal at checkout. That's Podcast Portugal, all one word and in caps. Visit expatsportugal.com today and start your Portugal journey with the support of people who've been there, done that, and are ready to help you do it too. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. I'm really excited to speak with our next guest. It's something that I often do if I visit a new city, and particularly Lisbon. I love to walk around it. So I'd like to make a really warm welcome to Andre Gomes, whose Instagram is Walking with Andre. He'll probably correct that for me if necessary. And he takes people on really interesting walking tours of Lisbon. And very excited to speak to him today and cover some of the history and interesting things to see and do in Lisbon. Andre, a very warm welcome.
Hello, worlds. Hello, Justin. Thank you. Thank you for the warm intro. And yes, indeed, being a tour guide in my, not my hometown, I guess starting with that, but doing some tours around Lisbon is fascinating. It's a city with so many nooks and crevices that you can, I don't know, just linger and learn of the city's history, which is very vast. So is the history of Portugal in general. But yes, thank you for the warm welcome, and I'm excited to be here.
Hey, thank you. And have you seen it change over the last few years? I mean, we can almost, we have a vast history to cover, so we can't, unfortunately, cover everything in this podcast, but there are some major impacts to the city, as is the influence of Marquês de Pombal. There is also the earthquake of 1870 something or other, I always forget.
1755.
1755, the other way around. Okay, so, yeah. And tell me, what are some of the big influences you've seen on the city and recently and in the past, and how is that marked? How is that sort of mapped out over the city as it unfolds?
That's a very multi-layered question. But,
yeah, sorry.
No, don't you worry. That's what we're here for. But in broad terms, even maybe a fair warning, a full disclaimer to anyone who wants to visit Lisbon and falls in love with the city and might want to move into the city for good, which has been happening over the last 20 years, I would say. Be mindful that this city was due to earthquakes, which they don't happen that often, but when they happen, they're usually quite impactful in the layout of the city. The city is rather old, rather old. Through carbon dating, we place the city at around 4,500 years.
Wow.
And different peoples of colors and creeds in 5 major periods of occupation, they occupied this territory here, Lisbon. And one thing that, due to the earthquakes, the city is built on strata of those civilizations. People move in, they don't check the groundworks or I mean, the foundations of anything that they buy, and they might end up having to wait close to a decade for city hall and Portuguese archaeologists and historians to go and evaluate anything that is found until they're actually able to start using anything that they bought, doing some works on the foundations and master walls. I guarantee you archaeological remains will be found. But how have they impacted? Well, mostly what can be perceived these days, anywhere we dig, we find Roman archaeological remains, from sets of walls to theaters to places where they used to produce olive oil and produce garum, which is a fermented paste, I guess, that they would make with fish. We find a lot of fish tanks spread around the whole of the city, even the district, with garum tanks, which is like fish, salt, leave it there to linger and get a very tasty, for lack of a better word, paste. But truly what you can perceive from today in Lisbon, really, everything is around 270 years. built after the last big earthquake, which was quite severe and quite impactful. It was one of the biggest ever recorded earthquakes in our history, human history. So everything you see in Lisbon is around 270 years old, which by some world standards, it is still rather old. Lisbon looks vintage. But in broad terms, it's that. Other than that, if you go around Lisbon, you'll see Portuguese people, of course. And the way that our culture and way of being was also impacted by other civilizations is the language itself. Mostly from the 712 until the arrival of our very first king in Lisbon in 1147. So for the better part of 5 centuries, Lisbon and Spain too, but the whole Portugal, the whole continental portion of Spain was occupied by Muslims who had come from Morocco and Algiers. And while the Spanish were always a little bit more unforgiving of the Muslims, the Portuguese, we allowed the Muslims to mingle in our society. They had to pay a tax to keep their faith, but they were allowed to remain. And that led to the Portuguese and the Muslims to sort of intertwine a little bit. And our language, it's far harsher than other Latin languages because Portuguese is actually a crossbreed of Latin and Arabic. So as you go around the city and you hear Portuguese people speaking and you hear these harsh sounds that sometimes are mistaken by to be Russian, people think that Portuguese sounds like Russian. So those are the key ways that you can perceive the city. So earthquake, right? Roman remains from way back, and the language, which sounds a bit like Arabic. It has some Arabic traits to it. Yeah, that was a bit of a long question, long answer.
No. Far away. That is absolutely fascinating. I speak a little bit Arabic. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so I can definitely tell in like a lot of the Al Ghav or Al whatever, El Penda, all these types of things have roots in the Arabic language, and there was many similarities like Tamara, which is
say that again.
Tamara.
Pamela.
Tamara with a T.
Tamara. Tamara,
which is the dates. And what is the, I think in Spanish it's data or something like that, no? For a date fruit, not sure.
In Portuguese it's Tamara.
Exactly.
The exact same.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you like a funny curiosity perhaps, I'm not sure how versed you are in Arabic, but do you know Portugal?
Yes.
Portugal.
Yeah.
You know what that means?
Yeah.
I mean, in Arabic.
Yeah.
Well, for the audience, it means orange. So technically, Portugal, this country's name, is it means orange in Arabic. It also means orange in other languages, also in Greek and Bulgarian, and that stemmed from the fact that with the Portuguese in 1415, we were pioneers in Europe in making it across the world. We made it our way into the ocean, right, and established our colonies and our empire of way back. And we caught wind from a very young age that if you did not ingest vitamin C while in the open waters, you would get scurvy.
Exactly.
So in many harbors where we arrive around the world, see the locals from those harbors will say, where is this sailor from, right? And they noticed that with the Portuguese, we'd carry these bags of oranges with us everywhere we went. So they said, he's from Portugal. And Portugal evolved into becoming orange in many harbors and languages around the world. It's kind of funny.
Fantastic. Just something so simple like that. Just an understanding of vitamin C and oranges and perhaps probably lemons as well. Like, and also I sort of think the salting of cod as well must have played quite a big part, because then you have a, salting of fish that also means that you can travel for quite a long way.
Actually, it was actually the other way around, funny enough.
Okay.
It was actually the other way around when it comes to the salted cod, because cod is precious to us, right? We eat cod at every single opportunity we have. We have like 1,000 recipes of it. You'd be surprised, most people are surprised to know, that Portugal is the biggest importer of cod in the world. We don't have a single cod in our waters.
I can imagine.
It was actually after the earthquake, right? The country became a pile of rubble. And a lot of Portuguese are desperate for, to make ends meet, and they started fishing for cod in the North Atlantic. But they fished for it mostly like Iceland and Canada and Norway. And we started salting the cod because it was so profitable to fish for it that the wages of the fishermen and sailormen were paid in cod. So they didn't want for it to spoil. So they started salting it. And the tradition of salting cod came from there. So they actually came back to the country 5, 6 years, 10 years after the fact, after the earthquake, and they had migrated. And with like 300 pounds of salted cod as their wages, and they didn't want to eat the same thing every day. So 1,000 recipes blossom. So codfish was actually the other way around. Codfish was something we acquired in the ocean rather than taking with us for longer journeys.
Interesting. That's great. That's such a fantastic. It's so integral. Even like with my family because my wife, she's Portuguese. So before Christmas Eve, we have we have a special bacalhau. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, yeah, I just absolutely love Lisbon, and I read somewhere that you were saying that one of the top three things you must bring to Lisbon is a good pair of walking shoes, which I
Yep.
completely agree with because it's a country. Sorry, it's a city that sort of unfolds in front of you as you walk because there's so many little places you can find, so many little places you can go. And it's not an easy walk if you go up some of the hills and down some of the down some of those steps and things. Um, can you sort of describe to us a little bit the different areas of Lisbon and a little bit about their history? I know I heard you talking about Bairro Alto. That's a sort of an interesting sort of nightlife place, and it had some early roots which were quite interesting. And also down sort of more towards the river where you have the docks and that kind of stuff.
Right, right. Well, today, from what can be perceived today, uh, the city is divided in three key areas, at least the way I like to think about it, which is the city. Lisbon was not that big of a city, talking like 1500s, 1600s. The city grew around the castle, right? The castle of St. George that we can find on top of one of our seven hills. And the older neighborhoods, we have 16 traditional neighborhoods of these, which are spread not just around the castle. The castle only has three adjacent to it. But I like to think about the area of the castle as being old Lisbon or medieval Lisbon, because again, the city was small and it grew pretty much around the castle. These are talking about Alfama, Mouraria, and Graça. These three neighborhoods being the original three neighborhoods of Lisbon, but of course it kept expanding throughout the centuries. Then I like to think about, even though again, those are the three traditional neighborhoods that surround the castle, there are some other traditional neighborhoods spread around the city, of which Bairro Alto, as you were referring, is one of those. So there are traditional neighborhoods that are not the ones surrounding the castle, but I tend to see the area surrounding the castle as medieval Lisbon. Then there's mostly everything that stemmed after the earthquake, of which we can consider downtown, because the layouts of the old neighborhoods really didn't really change. Downtown, see, Portugal was already going on a downward spiral economically in the early 1800s. Strain of bad marriages. We had lost our independence to Spain for 60 years. So some loss of some of our ships, but Portugal was already going a downward spiral, and it was the earthquake of 1755 that really it was a straw that broke the camel's back. So the crown of Portugal did not have enough. Our monarch at the time didn't have enough spare coin to rebuild the whole of the city. So he rebuilt, or the crown rebuilt, downtown. And downtown, it's in stark contrast. Not just downtown, mind you, not just the area literally by the river and the street of gold and the silver and the Augusta Street. Not just those three. It is stretched further than downtown, the reconstruction by the crown. But in broad terms, let's speak of downtown. And downtown is in stark contrast with the old neighborhoods, because downtown is like these straight lines, and by Portuguese standards, downtown, the streets are wide and long, and they're very geometrically organized. It's like a Roman city, 90-degree angles. All the streets were divided by the type of crafts and trade that happened on them. So I distinguish downtown from the old neighborhoods, all of them. And then there's, of course, the most modern area of the city. City kept growing, especially in the 20th century. And in particular, a shining example of this way more recent, late 80s, early 90s, we start building the area of Parque das Nações. There was an exhibition in 1998 called Expo 98, sorry. And it was an international exhibition for us to showcase things from the past and our goods. This area is further from the center, but it's modern, like a city, any other city, any bigger metropolis you'll find in Europe or the rest of the world, which is more modern. You see buildings made of metal, and they have like, I don't know, like 50 stories. So I like to distinguish the city in those three areas mostly.
Nice, yeah. Parc de Nações, that's where they have the big marine park and that kind of thing, isn't it? Like they have a
so the aquarium.
That's right. Yeah. It's nice. I like that area as well. I mean, I love the different areas. It's nice to have contrast in many ways, and particularly the sort of the party area. A lot of people like to know. I mean, these days it's really really jam packed with people, right? But if you want that sort of vibe, if you're coming into Lisbon for a short period of time and you want to sort of hang out in the bars, it's got a very liberal feel. It's nice for just to experience for sure.
We're talking Bairro Alto here.
Yes, yeah. I'm talking about
Definitely, yeah,
Bairro
yeah.
Alto a lot, aren't I?
Yeah, look, Bairro Alto, for people who are not familiar with Lisbon, might be hearing. Bairro Alto is like 250 streets. One of our traditional neighborhoods. Streets are narrow and like cozy, right? But we're talking 250 streets that crisscross 700 bars.
Wow.
And Portugal is a country which is very liberal. You can drink on the streets in Portugal. It turns into a block party. People don't even toss the parties inside the bars. They grab their drinks and toss it outside. And if you know where to go there are places, right? You can get like a pint of beer for 50 cents. So, yes, and it's a place where the Portuguese go to. I'm not saying we won't go to other nightclubs and some more, I don't know, upscale bars and all. But if you're looking for a traditional Portuguese experience in terms of nightlife, that's where you'll find the Portuguese. Bairro Alto, the high neighborhood. Yeah.
Nice. And what other things? What other places and areas do you think you can recommend visiting in Lisbon?
For nightlife or overall?
Oh, anything that people, what the sort of clients that you've taken on walking tours, what are the sort of feedback they get of they give you for certain areas?
Well, going back on what you said a moment ago, Lisbon is the killer of high heels. It's
from the calçada.
yeah, calçada portuguesa, the Portuguese pavement. Lisbon is not the most ergonomical city ever. Steep, and our pavements made of cobble, sometimes not very well maintained, as most things Portugal really. But
And
in general,
slippery.
Lisbon, just go crazy with it. Just walk.
Yeah.
Just walk and see what you find. But of course, the traditional neighborhoods that surround the castle, Alfama, Moraria, and Graça, between the sets of tiles, between the people who have the doors of their homes being open, and they're on the inside, but the doors of their homes are open. You can swing by their door and you look inside, and they're like, I don't know, like sewing a pair of socks, or they're having a beer in their underwear. So that's something, considering we're talking in the European capital, not something you see often, at least from the capitals that I visited. Also, a staple people really, really enjoy, and it makes sense for them to do so, is the parish of Belém. So to the west from downtown, past the bridge. Contrasting with Lisbon itself, Belém is more flat, because Lisbon, again, not very ergonomical. Belém is flat by the riverside, and we call it our monumental quarter, between some of the best legacy from the richest Portuguese king in our history that was left there, between the monastery and the tower. Those are like staples of our culture and the discovery age, to the monument to the discoveries, which was built during the dictatorship, so 20th century, to the Portuguese, I guess, I don't know which is the demography for our audience, but the Portuguese White House, where you can see the palace of our president. Also, between like good gardens, good restaurants, the monuments, and very good museums. The best museums in town, in my opinion, are in the parish of Belém, Bethlehem. I have my own preferences, but I think Belém is a very sought out area, and for a good reason too. So pretty much Belém, downtown, and the neighborhoods that surrounds the castle are pretty good. One thing I'll tell you is, and I think Lisbon could do would do better with. We don't have enough green areas in Lisbon, in my opinion. If you're looking for like these big natural parks that you might find in other European metropolis and other countries around the world, Lisbon is a bit lacking in that regard, in that department, in my opinion. There are some, but they're either hidden or they're not that big.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, like I tend to walk through Lisbon and then hit the river and then walk along the river, and I suppose you get that kind of sense of nature from the river there.
Yeah, that's an ever presence of the city is the river itself, of course. That counts as nature.
Yeah. And also really quite an interesting area is the LS factory. I used to like going there.
Oh yeah.
And how did that come about? For anybody the listeners here that don't know, the LS factory, it's the kind of arts district, I guess you could say. It's like, but I know they're actually there's a new sort of arts area as well, Lisbon. We can talk a little bit about that later. But the LS factory is sort of what is that? And it's right under the bridge, so you get a nice hum.
Right on. Yes, LX Factory is as you said, as you put it very well, it's literally underneath the bridge, the 25th of April, the one that looks like the Golden Gate, on the northern margin, so on the side of Lisbon itself. You don't have to cross the bridge to go to it. And what is it? Well, it's that area was very lively from perhaps, well, pretty much all the dictatorship all the way to the early 80s. That area was lively, but one of the facets that I disagree with or that I disapprove of my country's culture, and just laying it out there, it's Portugal might be a bit corrupt. Portugal is not necessarily a meritocracy. It's like families of way old money, right? And one thing that happened was when Portugal and Spain joined the European Union in 1985, um, we now had to meet some quotas, things we didn't produce enough of in terms of industry and goods, we had to invest in. And things we produced too much of, we had to tone down or sunset. And one thing that happened was we sunset a lot of factories and industry that generated jobs and goods, and for nothing, because technically the European communitary funds we got to develop industries we were not big on went to the pockets of an elite few. And this led to some of the areas of the river sides of the Tagus River, both on the northern margin and the southern margin, to just be left abandoned. And the area of LX Factory was one of those. It was for shipyard, like containers and like merchandise, right? It was a harbor, and it was left abandoned because we no longer had the industries working there. So for I don't know, like 30 years, that was left abandoned. Like most of the riverside area on both sides really was left abandoned where industry used to be at. And then the locals decided, well, there's plenty of room here. No one's really claiming this for themselves. No one's doing anything here. Let's start building this as being a bit of a hipster place. Let's see what we can do with the place. Started tidying it up. Started doing some cool graffiti, some street art. And then the moment that it became popular as a hipster sort of niche place in a city all then took an interest. And then it took a life of its own. And it's now pretty much, you can call it like the artsy hipster borough of the city. Even though Alex Factory is not that big, but now you go there and what used to be these not storehouse departments, but storage buildings, I guess, are now escape rooms, handcrafted materials. You can do workshops of all sorts of things, tattoo, artist shops. It's nice, actually. I actually do recommend visiting LX Factory. Sorry, there's an ambulance going by.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
problem.
And yeah, especially on the weekend, because on the weekend, on top of what's already there as a staple between restaurants and libraries and you name it, all the things that I've already named, there's also a market that happens there where people go with their handcrafted materials, put up some shops. So yeah, LX Factory,
Very nice.
pretty nice. Yeah, pretty nice.
I've also noted that and I'm not sure if it's a recent occurrence, but like it's a similar area now is Marvilla.
Oh yeah.
That seems to have sort of taken off a little bit, especially with the more sort of upscale art galleries and sort of artist studios and quite cool developments going on up there as well.
Correct. It followed the same steps of LX Factory, abandoned areas, big storage compounds, factories, all abandoned. And yes, a lot of artists made Marvilla and institutions also took on those places which have been left abandoned, and they started building them up. Yeah, I actually have a friend in a city who developed, in conjunction with other people, of course, a cool immersive fado experience. Fado, like our music, FADO, like the Portuguese blues.
Yeah.
She built a very cool experience there. And yes, Marvilla, you are correct. From upscale art galleries, also some. But when we speak on upscale, if people are aiming at visiting Lisbon and expecting to find upscale like you would find in New York, that's not exactly what you'll find. We're talking like abandoned storage buildings that are tidy and cool on the inside, but from the outside, they're the most unremarkable thing ever.
They're sort of more contemporary, aren't they, as well? The sort of art that they have is more sort of contemporary. And I mean, we do have the museums here. I mean, I have seen the big the one on the river there next to the EDP. That EDP station is pretty cool. I've looked around there. That is kind of quite unique. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
We're talking close to the city, though, not to Maravilha. We're talking
No,
the
yeah,
one
we've
in
skidded back now
Santos,
to yeah, that's
in the
it,
Santos
Santos.
area.
Yeah, so you have that beautiful museum of modern art, which has been sort of carved in the riverside there with really interesting architecture. And then next door to it, you have a big old power station that they've converted into a museum that you can walk around. If you like sort of heavy engineering and cogs and wheels and stuff like that, it's really interesting.
Yeah, we're going back to the area of Belém.
Is it
That's
that
the
area? Is
area.
it? Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the museum you're speaking of. I know the name escapes me, but they won an architectural prize of sorts by the design of the museum itself.
Yeah,
The museum you're speaking of is called MAT,
that's right.
MAAT.
That's it.
It's the Museum of Art, Architecture, and Technology.
Technology. Yeah.
And I've been there. Art is not exactly my cup of tea. I've been on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful building, very spacious,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
something you usually don't find in Portugal. Things tend to be a bit more cramped, but it's very
Mm-hmm.
spacious. And yeah, just right adjacent to it, there is the power station. That one museum I have very fond memories of. This is when I was a kid. The electricity museum was super like interactive,
Mm.
and I remember going there with my dad, and my dad would say, "Hey kid, grab this," and then I would grab it. I get zapped, you know. So
Yeah.
the the Museum of Electricity is now part of MAT too. They also
Yeah.
have some permanent exhibitions there, and I think they have 3 permanent exhibitions and 3 exhibitions who will swap every other month. So
Yeah, it's definitely
yeah,
worth a visit. I took our 5-year-old there as well. Did the same thing, but he was turning the big wheels and, you know, loved it. And I think
yeah,
the mat is definitely just worth even just for wandering around it. You probably don't even need to see the exhibitions, but the building itself and the architecture and sort of wandering around and taking photos and stuff is actually really super nice. It's a very
right.
I think the
We are of the same mind. Yeah,
yeah, I think
and
he's maybe a Japanese architect. I might be getting this wrong. That might be the new the Gulbenkian. Yeah, that might be the
oh, in Gulbenkian.
yeah, maybe I
Oh,
think
you
it's
mean
yeah,
oh, you mean Matt might turn into the new Gulbenkian? You mean?
no, I'm trying to remember. There's quite a famous Japanese architect that design. I'm getting confused whether he designed the mat or whether he's designed the mat and also is going to design a new wing of the Gulbenkian.
Oh,
I have
I'm out
to
of
do
the
some
loop. I'm out
research
of the
on
loop.
that.
I know that Gulbenkian, some areas of Gulbenkian have been off limits now for a while because they're doing some
That's it.
works.
That's it.
But I'm out of the loop actually of the architect of Matt and that one wing. If you say it's a Japanese, I trust you, but I'll have to.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
have
I
to
don't
look
know.
that
I
up.
can't really shed some light on that.
Yeah, I think it's the
But
Gulbenkian. They've got a new wing that's being sort of all modern and designed
yeah,
by a Japanese architect. It's going to be super interesting. And that's
you're
kind
saying
of a
it,
nice area. There's a bit of a garden there as well, isn't there?
oh yeah, Gulbenkian, yeah, precious. When I was saying that we don't have enough green areas in Lisbon, the gardens that surround the Gulbenkian Foundation are some of the best, yeah.
Mm.
And it's in a very center of the city. Yeah, Gulbenkian is great, the gardens. And also the art there, of course, for people who really appreciate art. Again, not exactly my cup of tea, but I highly recommend a visit to Gulbenkian, especially after they're done with the works. And just the strolling around in the gardens of Gulbenkian,
Mm.
even if you're not big on art, it's just an experience. It's like an idyllic experience because you're in the middle of the city and suddenly there's no noise. There's just like ducks.
Yeah.
It's fun. But if you'd care to know, actually, there's one thing that I cannot not bring it up. Um, Close to Mat, right, on the other side of the train station, we have the longest building of Portugal. It's a 333-meter of a
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
It's called the Cordoaria Nacional.
Yes,
It
I've
means
been
like
there. Yeah.
yeah, it's a wonderful building. It means national ropery. It was where all the ropes that went on the Portuguese ships who sailed around the world were stress tested. That's why it had to be that long, right? And some of the coolest exhibitions that come into town
Hmm.
usually go to there. And I'm talking like international things that are of
Yeah,
interest
they had
more
Banksy.
internationally.
They had a
Yeah,
Banksy.
they had Banksy. Now currently they have the Lego exhibition there.
Hmm.
I've seen the exhibition of the human body. I've
Wow.
seen terracotta there. So they have like pretty cool stuff. I like Cordoaria.
Yeah.
Every chance I get to have a cool exhibition, I go there. I
You,
still haven't went to this one with the Lego, but I will.
I have a bit of a funny story from there because we were trying to find the entrance, and because it's the longest building in Lisbon, to try to walk around to try to find the entrance is quite funny. Yeah, we spent probably nearly half the day walking around it to find the entrance.
Well, Eventually, you found it.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was really nice. I think it was one of the big art exhibitions they had there with the different artists and galleries all coming together and putting on a big show. Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
Yep. Well,
So,
one of the things at Lisbon, it's a newly acquired taste of mine actually. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades when it comes to doing tours. A newly acquired taste of mine is street art tours. You
yeah,
know,
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
because but like I don't really have to do much of anything. I mean, the city now is like
Mm,
a canvas. Artists of international renown have been coming to Lisbon and leaving their brand on every single corner and crevice.
mm,
It's actually quite. When I started studying of sorts, because I had to curate some routes, so I knew where to go and what was of relevance and what was not. I was appalled myself. I go by so many street art things, right? And works of art every day. I didn't even notice. And then I
mm,
started really paying attention. And Lisbon is back to the rim with street art. It blends vintage with modern really well.
mhm.
Of course, we have the Banksy Museum also in Lisbon. And Vils, Vils,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guy who carves things. Yeah, Vils stuff. It's fascinating, Lisbon, actually. It's a
yeah,
cool city.
yeah. I saw a really cool, talking about street art, I saw a really cool street artist the other day. He's from Lisbon. And basically, you get different types of graffiti, right? You get some which are not so great. It's just sort of scribbles and more sort of tagging, I guess, rather than sort of art. If you can, I don't want to get into the subjective, what is art and what is not art. But he comes along with a paint can and he paints over it. So he repaints he repaints the facade of the building so it looks all nice and new again. So he basically, his art is painting out the rubbish art. I thought that was really unique. Yeah, so
Good.
he comes out at night and does it all like a graffiti artist. He has a roller and a can of paint, and he's sneaking in there and he's just basically cleaning everything. And the police will drive past, going, "Ah, there's a graffiti artist. Let's arrest him." And then they realize he's repainting the building, and they leave him.
Like,
Uh,
oh, good on him. He's doing God's work. I don't
yeah,
appreciate graffiti really. I like art, right? Graffiti
yeah,
art, but just graffiti, I think it's nasty.
yeah. I just think his take on it is really funny. It's really positive, and it's like the opposite. I thought it was very interesting. But
Right.
what sort of areas do you think are up and coming in your Andre's recommendations for places which are sort of in the future going to be the places of Lisbon?
Okay, Lisbon as is established now.
Yeah, sort of like in the future. You know how sort of I don't know. I can only draw a comparison maybe to London. How when I moved to London in for art college for a while, and I literally lived in Brixton, and at that time it was going through a transition between being kind of a rough place and sort of low economic income area and that kind of thing to but having a really cool vibe, a really interesting vibe, and then sort of becoming a little bit yuppieized, a little bit gentrified. And nowadays, like if you try to build or buy a house in Brixton, it's completely crazy. The price is, really upscale. So that kind of thing in Lisbon, like we have the Aleix factory, we have Mobilia, and sort of what areas do you think have got sort of lots of potential for I don't know for change, sort of areas to go and see in the future or to experience.
Right. Potential,
Mm,
potential.
mm,
But from what I can grasp, not being developed yet.
exactly.
Potential is Olaias,
Okay.
Olaias, and Chelas. Chelas is actually adjacent to Marvila, and Olaias is adjacent to Chelas.
Okay.
This area was a bit troublesome in late 80s, 90s. This was like where the drug trade happened.
Okay.
And most of this has now been cleaned up. Like now, Portugal is super liberal when it comes to drugs. Portugal, there's no gangs, no mafias. Those areas are close enough to the city itself, but they're very underdeveloped yet. And I think they can go the same way that Marvila went because they're like Marvila,
Mm.
but they're not being developed yet. But I think those
Yeah.
two have the
So
potential.
so one's like
And
up the
yep,
river and one's down the river from Mavia. Is that correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. They're Allied is a bit further up, and Shelish. Actually, they're both further in. Like Marvila will be more like on the riverside, and Shells is a bit like further in.
Okay.
And so is Olaias. But yeah, those areas I think they have the most potential,
Mm-hmm.
truly, because they're very not underdeveloped, but it's like residential homes and lower income, like working class, more people. But the potential is there
Mm-hmm.
because they're undervalued, in my opinion, for what Lisbon can be. Especially if they decide to ever extend the subway. I mean, there's already subway to Olaias, but not to Shellas. And this is like in the long, long, long future. If someone in the audience is like an investor and has a lot of spare coinage, we just approved a governmental budget to build a second airport in the southern margin.
Yeah, I heard about that because I
In
live near
in
Beja, you
Alcochete.
see. So I was hoping that they were going to give Beja the license to have an airport, but they went to more Seixal and down there, isn't it? This sort of
Yeah,
airport.
Seixal, Alcochete, Montijo area. Yes, they're gonna go to just across the river from Lisbon, really. So if you really are like an investor and you can turn a penny and you have the patience, and you probably can build some generational wealth by acquiring some property now
Yeah,
in those areas.
yeah,
But that's we're talking like 25 years from
yeah.
now, perhaps, because it's Portugal. Everything takes a while to. It's we're slow, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it
Takes
could
us a while to get things done.
the plans could change again as well because they've gone backwards and forwards depending which government is it, which parties in
True,
political
true,
power,
true,
isn't
true.
it?
True.
Because
So whatever the new airport is going to be at, you know,
yeah, it's a but
that's
like
definitely an area.
yeah. But yeah, I've done a lot of walking around. I really like that river walk. You know, it's really cool just to sort of walk along the river and then dart into Lisbon and see a little bit of stuff, and then walk a little bit further up the river. I've walked quite as far up there. It starts to get a little bit more. I think I've actually ended up at Parc des Nações. Like you say, there's the marina there,
Yeah,
which
you
is
did
really cool.
the whole riverside. You went past Marvila and Shellas and all the way
Yeah,
to Partes Nações. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
used to bike. Yeah.
you do see what you do see, and as many people have commented to me about this, is like you see a lot of abandoned buildings. Now, in the middle of a city, if you were in London or something like that, it would be very unusual to see an abandoned building. A developer would be coming in there and turning it into office blocks or residential apartments or something like that. Well, is it because of like you were saying earlier about the archaeological digs and things, the potential that you're building on top of something and it's just not worth the stress or the hassle to
Yeah.
develop? Or what do you think that is? I mean, there are some fantastic buildings literally right on the riverside there, and they're just empty, and they've been empty
R-
as long as I've
Yeah. All of those, all of those. So when you said you walked the riverside, you're pretty much talking from downtown all the way to
from
Parques
Belém.
Nações.
Yeah, from Belém all the way to Parc des Nações.
That's quite a walk,
Oh yeah,
actually, but
yeah, yeah,
that must have
yeah,
taken like
yeah.
4 hours. But
No, long,
in
probably a little bit longer because we had lunch as
yeah,
well.
okay.
Yeah.
That area, from downtown all the way to Parque das Nações, pretty much, that you see those abandoned buildings, those are the ones that I was referring to.
Mm,
Not unlike LX Factory, that when we entered the European Union, before it, all of that was very active.
mm,
And now it's not. It was all abandoned because we had to sunset most of the industry. So all of those are abandoned, and they were at one point property of companies who went who dissolved in the late 80s. And I agree with you. For a country where, especially, we're now struggling with our housing crisis. There's not enough housing, and prices have been a bit inflated uh, in relation to our economy. Yeah, all of that could be taken advantage of and built into residential areas, or even like not unlike Marvila. Yeah, all of that is abandoned. That literally all of that front, that riverfront, that area is completely underdeveloped. And it used to
mm.
be my father. His first ever job was in an area. It was one of those like abandoned factories you've seen,
Yeah.
and all of that is now it's a foregone thing. Is no one cares about that, and I don't exactly know why. There's so much potential there. Might be lack of coin. Might be they have people who own them. Really, is like oligarchs almost. People who don't need.
This episode of Podcast Portugal is brought to you by Algarve Care Services, offering professional, reliable English-speaking home care and lifestyle support across the Algarve, and now expanding into Coimbra, Lisbon, Cascais, Sintra, and Porto over the next few months. Whether you're retiring here, supporting an aging parent, or simply seeking someone you can trust with day-to-day life, Algarve Care Services brings compassion, local knowledge, and real peace of mind to families from all over the world. Now, this is a type of service that's really close to my heart. My father died this last year, fairly recently, and he was suffering for over 25 years with Parkinson's disease. It was a real concern before he died for my family members because my father was an ex-England rugby player. He was 6'4". Although he'd lost a lot of weight, my mum used to say to me, how am I going to move this guy out of bed? Because he no longer could walk. In the UK, it would have taken 4 care providers to help him just to go for the bathroom every day. So, we'll be speaking with Kelly Dugmore from Algarve Care Services and founder. She is also the CEO in an upcoming episode to learn more about her story and her mission to make care in Portugal more dementia-friendly and accessible to those with mobility issues. Visit algarvecare.com via the link in the show notes to see how they can support your life here in Portugal. Yeah, one of the benefits, Andre, that I have with on a podcast is really getting to listen to so many different diverse viewpoints and perspectives. And often I debate with people about the housing shortage for locals, and I can understand it's an issue if you're trying to live and work in Lisbon. And I know sometimes I have family actually that live in Almada and have to commute into Lisbon across the bridge, and it can be challenging with traffic. So being able to have affordable housing in the city for people who work and live in the city would be beneficial. And there is a thought that there is a lot of influx of people and Airbnb and investment and all these kind of things makes the housing a little bit out of reach for people on a sort of a normal wage here in Portugal, at least in Lisbon. And I'm often debating this, and I feel, personally, when money comes into a country, it's a benefit. How that money is used or distributed is usually where the problems occur. But you need the liquidity coming in, and I've spoken to an economist, a friend of mine here on a podcast, and he was talking about like Portugal really needs liquidity. It needs cash flow, because with cash you can start to do investments and you can do things, and it gets circulated through the economy and everyone benefits. But then I have spoken to sort of more nationalist feel, I would sort of call it, who sort of point the finger at foreigners coming in and saying, you guys are buying up all the houses, you're making it very expensive, and no Portuguese can live in the city anymore. Which, both there is no wrong and right, and I'm sure both of these stories are very correct. And so we're faced with these challenges, and I think from your perspective, we're very reliant on tourism, and I'm quite shocked to hear your story about how in the 80s and 90s they closed these factories. For me, that is kind of shocking. These industries were probably the backbone of a lot of Portuguese income, and so I like to think that we can do that. To be positive and talk about ideas of the future which we can do, and that's partly why I asked you that question earlier about future areas which you think of development, that we can actually have liquidity coming in. There can be affordable housing. There can be businesses and business centers and things which sort of develop and encourage entrepreneurs and encourage people to digital nomads or whatever, or podcasters and studios or factories of people making things again. I know up in the north in Porto, some of my family, she's actually gone back into creating, which her family did for a long time, into materials and making fabrics and clothing. And I applaud her for that. And I think this is something that we need to, as people in discussion, we all have our input and say, and I think it's something we can talk about and create a positive vibe rather than this kind of nationalistic feeling I get. Sometimes it's like, rich people are coming in and buying everything, which I think you can see something in that as well. But it's trying to, okay, so that's the case. Where do we go from here? What is your opinion on that, Andre? Sorry, a bit of a long question.
No, all good, all good. But yes, first things first. I'm not an economist, and
Hmm.
I do not represent, in any way, shape, or form everyone in the country, right? But you touch on very key, important aspects. Definitely, the housing crisis is a problem, and w- there are people now. This seems to be a trend in Europe, because all parties really, who really align on the right, they all read or learned from the same book. They always point
Mm.
the fingers at foreigners being the problem. I do not, but I might be biased because I work in tourism being my bread and butter, of course. But I'll tell you what my 2 cents on it are. Indeed, Portugal, of course, appreciates the liquidity, having income from external sources coming into the country and coming into our economy. It's good. It's just, as you said, it is not very well distributed. Portugal is a liberal country. Liberalism is not a buzzword for politicians here. There's bad apples everywhere, but we're not fundamentalist in terms of religion, even though Portugal has been Catholic for 900 years. We are not that polarized in terms of political parties. Since the abolishing of the dictatorship, it has been a game of chair between central left and central right. As of this year, 2025, the far right has taken the reins of the country. Like 2 months, 3 months ago, they made a coalition. The far rights got 22% of the votes, which is unprecedented. And they made a coalition with the central right party. And they are immediately, as again, they all seem to have learned from the same, read from the same book. They made the lives of foreigners in Portugal harder immediately. Now, you could get Portuguese citizenship if you had a residence card. In 5 years, they immediately turned it to 8, and there's no, I don't know the word in English though. um it's not retroactive. Even people were like on the verge of getting their residency, they've been here for like 4.5 years. Now they have to wait 3.5 years more. So
Mm.
I don't, of course, very good. Tourism is our bread and butter. The government really, um not cashed in, but really bet on tourism, and it's good for us, sure. But I can see two sides of a coin also, in the sense that while tourism in Portugal keeps being what it is, we won't invest in any other thing. It's hard. It's hard to just close that tap. And
Mm.
while there's a lot of, again, cash inflow coming from external sources, it is not very evenly or at all distributed, really. You see a lot of people working in tourism. I'm an outlier as a Portuguese. I'm super blessed. I don't know what had happened, but when it comes to tourism and doing tours, I I'm not in the same situation as most of the people who are my generation and younger now, where it's hard to see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard to get out from under in Portugal, because you see a lot of tourism, you see a lot of people working in tourism, but most of the people you see working in tourism are working on minimum wage or just above it. And the people who rake in, I think that's the word, rake in the profits,
Yeah.
are the people who own the companies. And these people, they don't really care much about in investing for the good of everyone. They care more about themselves, which I understand this. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. If anything, having people coming to Portugal is good. Now, Portugal being very liberal, we don't deny the entrance of anyone in the country. This thing that which shall not be named, starts with a D and ends in Donald Trump. This thing that has been doing now in America, where you can get American citizenship by investing 5 million USD, I believe, in a country, you'll get American citizenship, which he didn't really invent the wheel there. In Portugal, been doing this since 2005 or 2006, and here it was far more affordable. It was 500,000. 500,000 euro was enough, business or property of an investment, for you to get citizenship and a lot of perks. You get a lot of tax exempts. The problem with this is not bad, of course. Injects money in our economy. People come here. That's great. We don't deny anyone, though. So people from the least developed economies in the world also come to Portugal trying to get a better life, which I'm all for also. Issue is, these people who come from the least developed economies, they will take upon jobs that the Portuguese would not, for
Mm.
low wages or minimum wage, which leads to an artificial disparity between the increasing cost of life and our wages, which are kept low. So in Portugal, there's no really a middle class to speak of these days. Either you're rich and you're getting richer, you're poor and getting poorer. And as a Portuguese, it was only when I truly started getting knee deep into being a tour guide and wanting to know what I'm talking about, not just speaking at a superficial level. I started having a better understanding of the history of Portugal and these men, this quality of men we produced, the likes of which we can only see in portraits these days. Um, Great men, right? And I felt most Portuguese people, if they don't study history and who we were, our forefathers, they will feel a bit differentiated with their country because there's not that many opportunities. Like there are countries. There's also a mentality problem. Portuguese people don't have the most entrepreneurship mentality. They
I've heard that.
sometimes are always banking on the social state to come and bail you out, right? But people feel differentiated because they don't know history. And when you are a young man in this country, you don't catch many breaks, truly. It's a mentality problem. People can make their own way into the world, but you don't catch many breaks. It's tricky. You can go to college and our education is actually quite good in Portugal, even public schools, colleges, I mean. Your education is pretty good. But after you get your degree, after you get your master's, it's hard to find a Portuguese company that will um, pay you, I guess, your true value, the time and the money and the energy and the resources you invested into getting a degree. You don't really get that back in the
Then you get
sort
the
of
emigration.
yeah, you don't get that back in the time frame that makes sense, and then you get to see a lot of people who, God forbid, I get in the way of anyone who worked hard now wants to play hard. But you see a lot of people coming from strong economies. They come here and they buy things in a bulk, and you still, after investing all that time and money and effort into getting a degree and a master's, you don't really catch that many breaks. You don't see how you could ever attain that level. So it's hard. But Portugal, one of the best countries in the world to be rich. It's like Disneyland for adults. It's safe, weather is nice, food is good. For the most part, my generation and younger, everyone speaks English. So there is that. But as a Portuguese in your 20s, early 30s, it's a bit tricky if you don't if you don't think a little bit outside of the box and not willing to take risks. You can't just grind through the corporate world or through like starting an entry level job and like 5 years from now you're going to be doing great. Not really. You can grind your whole life and you never really get out from under. You don't really see an increase in your wage. It's also Portugal is not a meritocracy. Latin countries again tend to be stereotyping a little bit, but uh, true. Tend to be a bit more corrupt, and Portugal definitely. It's not a meritocracy. It's who you know. You can see people, and I knew cases of these friends of mine got their masters, got their degrees, got into this company, right, Portuguese company, or even international, but mostly Portuguese companies, and they would be on an entry level job after having investing all that time and money into getting a degree and a master's, and then you see a guy who you know from like high school, perhaps. You knew he wouldn't even attend class. He was just like I don't know. He was a pothead, right? And he didn't even go to college. You know, he didn't go to college. And this guy, month in, 2 months in, after you got admitted into this entry level job, he gets hired to a position higher than yours. So it's a problem. We can't really point the fingers at mass migration or mass tourism. I also think that while we have this tap, while the tap is open, while the bubble doesn't burst, so to speak, in terms of tourism, that I don't think we can ever get back to investing anything else. It's just it's a band-aid, I guess, in a way, tourism for us. Sorry, that was also a very long.
No, it's fantastic answer. You speak very well, and I think we need voices like you because you speak to a lot of people. You speak to a lot of people from all over the world that come here, and you're talking to them about Lisbon and Portugal, and they're talking to you about probably their own history, their politics, and things like that. So I think you're in a position where you get to hear a lot of information and a lot of opinions, and I think what you're saying is worth a lot. It's worth a weight in gold, and I agree with you. Like it's completely crazy when you invest in your country's education, and those people graduate. The brains and the of your country, they graduate and then they go somewhere else.
Yeah, you gotta migrate. You gotta migrate. Yeah.
Yeah, they take them somewhere else. So firstly, I think if we were going to do our little checklist of how we can secure the future of Portugal, I think we need to make sure that those people, firstly, don't leave. We need to make sure that the people that have left will return with their skills. And I think, because education, like you say, is really good here.
Yep.
And I think also we need to make sure that, if people don't want to, or if they're not in that mindset, maybe we can have some kind of entrepreneurial school. We could have some sort of, they've got their education, they got their degree, and maybe they can learn for a year or something of how to become an entrepreneur, how to manage business, how to start your business, and have some angel investors or liquidity or funders. They're ready to invest in good ideas. So if you're trying to be an entrepreneur, it's difficult. You need liquidity, you need money, you need investments, you need funders, you need people just even to fund the idea for a year. But
Yeah, definitely. It's a tricky one to tackle. See, the problem is, as I said, we can't just look at these external factors. I'm actually, you use the word in English, an apologist? No, an apologist.
Yeah,
I'm
apologies. Yeah, you can.
okay. I'm an apologist of look to yourself first. Don't try to look for. Take responsibility for oneself. And we do get it again. There's some problems with all the mass migration, people coming here and buying things in a bulk. But the Portuguese need to look at themselves first. One of the reasons why I think things don't succeed is Portuguese people like to play it safe. And I say safe, quote unquote, because you don't really have a lot of wiggle room unless you come from money, right? But you don't have a lot of wiggle room for a business to fail. So people don't risk it. And they don't even look for funding to open these, as you said, initiatives and companies. And one thing that I tell you, it could definitely help the country, and it would be segueing off of tourism, is developing the center of the country. Because we actually built in the 80s and 90s, the presidents at the time, the administrations at the time, they built a great set of roads. There's asphalt all the way to the most remote village in the center of Portugal.
Yeah.
Just nothing to do there.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And we could do, still segueing off of tourism, do some rural tourism, go do some bird sightseeing, go and learn about the routes of, I don't know, Templars, or visiting sites of battles that were waged in Portugal between Portugal and Spain, or the French.
All of the little castle towns like Mordo and all of those in my area, just Alentejo. Like if I go east, you have fantastic castle towns and cities with steeped in history and beautiful, like wine tasting and cheeses and local meats and black pig and. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty to do. And it is one of the things I was saying about having Beja Airport open, because it's an hour and a half from Lisbon, an hour and a half from the Algarve. And you right in the middle of Alentejo, you have a beautiful coastline as well, just sort of 40 minutes, 50 minutes down the road. And there's a highway. There is a highway. I don't know if you know this. There is a toll road, like a Via Verde type road. But they stopped. they literally built some of it, and then it just goes into nothing, and then it doesn't, and then goes into another road into Beja, which is just like a normal single road, which they're actually repairing now, but was terrible because it had potholes in it. But they have this amazing, beautiful dual carriageway which extends for about 2 or 3 kilometers, and intention was to join Beja to Sines. But they only they only built a bit of it, and then you see all these really expensive half-built bridges, which I don't know. It's completely crazy. But what an amazing opportunity that would have been to connect Beja to Sines. I mean, Sines has all of the infrastructure coming in and the freights and the containers, and Beja has is sort of promoting itself as a storage facility for products coming in from Spain, or
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much opportunity, and it drives me crazy a little bit. And like you say, I think it comes down to the administration, and I think it comes down to a big government. And exactly what you're saying is, people want a safe job. They want a job for life. Okay, and you know what? The biggest probably employer that gives you a safe job for life in this country is probably working for the government or the local council or the Camera. You have a
Right.
job for
So
life,
no
right?
one wants to rock the boat.
Yeah,
That's what
you're
I'm
buying
telling you.
votes. You're giving jobs. Oh, I don't want to rock the boat, so I'm always going to vote for the people that give me a job, right? And
Yeah.
we need less government. To be more efficient, we need less government. I believe, and that's part of my liberal democratic views. I I believe that if you educate a population, you can trust them to take control of their own destinies. You don't need an authoritarian system that tells you what you can and what you can't do. Of course, you have the rule of law, but you don't need to have government sort of interfering because you know a lot of government is built of people that don't really understand anything. They don't have much life experience. They don't know what it's like to work, running a tourist company
Right.
like you.
Hmm.
They don't know what it's like to work in the docks or work in the service industry as a hotelier or picking grapes. In my area, they don't know what it's like. They go from a degree straight into politics. And what life experience have they got? How do they know how we operate and how we feel?
Right.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
very
really interesting.
subjective thing of mine, but I don't even think you should attain certain ranks of positions where you get to administrate anything unless you
Hmm.
had come from the same industry, from the very low,
Yeah,
from the very
exactly.
entry level,
Yeah.
so you know
How
the
do you have the
know-how.
experience? Yeah, you
Yeah, of
don't know the
course.
experience. Your
Of course.
apprenticeships. Yeah, like you say, apprenticeships are amazing.
Yeah, look,
Um,
just since we're speaking on this, which is like both politics and education and needing to change the mentality, sort of not really plugging it in. I'm not campaigning for anyone. I'm not. I don't dabble that much in politics, but
mhm.
there's this. I have a friend in Lisbon. Is also a content creator. Is an Irishman, and he developed a brand. And in these brands,
Stephen O'Regan.
Stephen, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
Stephen.
I know. Yeah, he's been on the podcast.
Oh, he has? I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah,
No, he's a good friend. He's a good friend.
yeah,
And he was Stephen. He talks with a lot of people, so you know about his brand, like the People of Lisbon thing.
yeah. It's great.
Yeah, one of the folk that Stephen became an acquaintance of, and is now a member of the People of Lisbon, is a guy called Tim Vieira. Do you know of Tim?
Yeah, I've had Tim here on the podcast as well.
Okay, so you know Tim
Yeah,
is
yeah,
Tim.
yeah,
Tim
yeah.
as
But
is of the same
he's not
mind as you
running
are.
for the president anymore.
Yeah, well,
It's
I actually didn't know that. He quit.
yeah. I actually sent him a message. I was saying I'm really disappointed in you. I was really looking forward to you being the
Oh,
president.
I actually didn't know.
Because
I
of
actually
his
didn't know.
values. Yeah, I'm
But
sorry.
yeah,
I didn't mean to disappoint you, but
yeah. Well, hearing you speak, I was like, I hear he's hearing Tim, right? Because
right. Yeah,
Tim is of the same mind. Give people education, give people the chance, and he's developing that one academy of his, the Brave
yeah.
Generation,
Brave generation.
which is
Yeah.
now spread around the world, really. And
Mhm.
he's trying to create opportunity through changing the mentality. Because you were right, you were right a moment's time ago when you were saying that giving people the chance and giving people the education, things can thrive. But then it falls back on the mentality of the Portuguese again, because even if you have the education, even if you have the accolades, right, you still have, coming from your family, coming from education in the household, you still have a very conservative mentality in terms of taking risks, in terms of being loud. I think this might still be echoes from the dictatorship time, because for
Mhm.
48 years, the country was completely frozen in time. People wouldn't speak their minds, people wouldn't step out of bound. And these are still people who are now, like my parents' generation, people like in their 70s, late 60s, and they have this mentality of like, play it safe, don't step on anyone's toes. Be humble, put your head down, and work hard. But in Portugal, that doesn't work. It doesn't work. In general, I would say in the world that
It's a
might
great
not
way
work.
for someone to take advantage of you.
Yeah, in general, that's what happens. That's what happens. People who came from households who already came from generational wealth, or it gave them the mentality of no, go go and be out there in the world, open a company, and make as much money as you can in the least amount of time, and pay minimum wages.
Mm.
And you end up falling for, like, we call it carne para canhão meat. You become like cannon meat for like these guys who had a different mentality coming from their household. So yeah, I don't know. Also, one thing that I'll tell you also sets back the country, even for people who are settling and newcomers. You probably had to deal with this. Um, Portugal. I forget now the metric exactly, but Portugal was at one point the third or the fourth biggest paper producer in the world.
Ah, yeah.
Like we produce a lot of paper. Still produce some. I don't think we're up there anymore at third or fourth, but we produce a lot of paper. So bureaucracy, we had to justify all that paper we produced. So bureaucracy is a nightmare. Like there are countries where you want to open a business, like you snap your fingers and that's it, right? You put a name on a piece of paper, deliver it to like a registry keeping stuff, and your business is open, right? They will communicate with the Department of Finance. Here, no. You have to go to like 5 different places for the Department of Finance, 5 different places for record keeping for a business, go to the bank, and the bank is going to send you to the Department of Finance again, so you get the paper where you have to sign, and then you have like a date you have to deliver it to the registry keeping. Like, it's a mess. Like, take away some of the bureaucracy too, in my opinion.
I have to say on that point, I went to one of these business shops and I opened a business within a day.
Okay, well, good on you.
I seem to remember it being very, very easy. And I have to say that maybe that's my own personal experience, but I find it very, very easy. But then other sides of the raising capital, bank loans, or trying to get investments from funds and things like that. That's something that I find very, very hard.
Because why? You mean it wasn't easy to approach them? They wouldn't give you the time of day, or they would go through lengthy processes to vouch, or what was it then?
Yeah, you always don't have the right paper. You would rock.
Oh yeah,
I'd go with a suitcase full of papers and say, no, you need to have this paper, so you need to go there to get that paper, and then that's starting a business was no problem. It was a few of some of the intricacies after that that was more. Which was more problematic.
Okay.
I find buying property, selling property, I've never had any problems with that. I found that always, but if you have a really good real estate agent, that's all very smooth.
Okay, when I said starting a business, I don't mean literally starting it like on paper it now exists. I mean all of the fluffiness around it,
Yeah, the license, when you start to go into the licensing procedures.
Oh, that's what I meant. That's what I meant, like the licensing.
No, I fully agree with you. Like the activities. Say, for example, we sell advertising from on the podcast here. And it's like, okay, you can do an activity and stuff. But I also paint. So I had to, and I sold some paintings to the Museum of Urban Art,
wow.
I couldn't invoice them from this company. I had to invoice them from my own personal because of I didn't have the right activity. And I was just like, well, I have a company. The company should have the freedom to earn its money from however or whatever services that I sell or products that I sell. I don't need to then say, no, sorry, you can't do that because you don't have the right activity registered. And then you have to go and change the activity and da-da-da-da. No, I agree with you fully on that. Once you start to get into the licensing process, and I mean, for you, as a walking around Lisbon as a tour guide, I mean, how is it difficult? Do you have to have a license, or do you have to have sort of third-party public liability insurance or anything like that, or you just have a disclaimer and say, okay, people, you just walk next to me and I'll speak?
No, you do. But okay, remember the 2-3 sides to a coin in this, because Portuguese people, even though law for getting anything set up the right way, it's a lot to unpack. There's a lot of people, because working in tourism in Portugal, or working as a tour guide rather, the profession has been liberalized, meaning that way back when tourism was not yet as big, to work as a tour guide, you need to go to the tourism school, and you need to get we call it a post-graduation thing, and you'll become officially a tour guide, and only those were allowed to work. Since tourism became so big, there was, of course, way too much demand for the amount of people who went through that process, and they liberalized the profession. What does that mean? It means anyone can work as a tour guide, just as long as you have indeed, you register yourself in the Junta de Turismo Portugal, like in the tourism of Portugal, is a branch of the government. You register yourself there, and you pay, like you have to have a personal accidents type of insurance. And that's that. And then you get a number. That's actually smooth.
Okay.
Most people don't even do that. Actually, I of course won't say names, but there's plenty of people who don't even know you have to do this. Because a big problem, and again, going back to education, you're not really raised in Portugal to understand how money works, how law works. You learn as you go. unless you
Hmm.
come from a family where someone has already done it or your dad's a lawyer.
You
Like,
can afford a
you
lawyer.
really
Yeah.
don't learn about these things. You learn these things as you go. So it is not hard at all, not hard at all. But before you learn that you need these things, probably the first time you learn about these things is because you're paying a fine. A fine arrived at your
Yeah.
home, or you got how do you call it? Boarded? Not boarded, or you got solicited by the
Yeah.
police and say, "Hey, where is your Renat is the name of the governmental body who regulates
Hmm.
this. Where is your license, or where you have a proof that you pay your taxes, I guess,
Hmm.
to the tourism of Portugal?" And you have to have it to see that this is funny too. You need to have this printed. You need to have the paper on you all the time while you're doing a tour, which has
Mm.
like your name and saying that you paid it and it's valid until the certain date, right? You need to have it on paper, right? And I
Mm.
also learned that you need to have it on paper the hard way, because usually you don't see much police really
Yeah.
coming to tuk-tuk drivers or like tour guides. You don't see the police like really asking, "Hey, where are your credentials at?"
Hmm.
But if you do, and I was the one time, I learned that you need to have them on paper, because I have these again credentials thing that you can wear around your neck with my
Yeah.
number from like my insurance thing.
Okay.
That's not good enough. And I learned this real time. No one explained this to me when I paid my things to the tourism of Portugal. No one said, "Oh, you have to have this printed and on you at
They
all
probably
times."
didn't know.
No, I didn't know. I literally
That's the
didn't
thing that
know.
yeah, that's something that I've also found here. Sometimes you can go to these bodies and authorities and you
And
speak
they
to
don't know.
somebody and
They
they
don't
don't
know.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
It's
know?
it's 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 a thing, man. I love this country. I wouldn't have chosen to be born in any other time in any other country, really.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like flying much, but I've visited countries mostly around Europe,
Mhm.
and I've taken airplanes too. But in Europe, but I the more I go out, the more I like Portugal. You just need to learn how to we call it passar entre os pingos da chuva. You need to learn how to be able to pass between the raindrops, you know? Otherwise, you get
Yeah.
caught in the
No,
crossfire of
it's
like
alright.
legality, bank, I don't know,
Yeah.
politics. You can get swallowed up and munch that. It's not munch that. You can be
Yeah, yeah,
you can get yourself not in trouble, but always there's always this little something that is always nagging at you,
yeah.
and you need to be a bit smart in Portuguese society. And I don't mean necessarily like corrupt, exchanging of favors, meritocracy, Freemason. I'm not talking about any of that. But you
Mhm.
need to know your way around. Otherwise, you get gobbled up in by the government, by the bank. They'll have their day with you. They'll have their day with you. You need to know what
Mhm.
you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not a country again. It's corrupt. It's not dangerous. But if you don't get yourself educated, financially, law
Mhm.
wise, digitally, man, end up becoming just another number on
Fichu.
paper for the government, and you will eventually wither away. You need to know what
Yeah,
you're doing. It's not that hard, but it's
yeah.
not embedded in us from our households, from our parents, because they had this stay in your lane, don't make any waves. We have an expression also. Since you said your wife's Portuguese, yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
you might have heard, and if you haven't heard, ask her, because it's a very interesting expression called "o velho do Restelo." Have you ever heard of this?
The sheep of the castle?
No,
No.
no, no, no. O
No?
velho do Restelo. It means the old
Ah,
man
the old man. Oh, yeah.
from Restelo. Restelo used to be Belém, the parish we were
Ah,
speaking of. And this
okay.
was the guy who was like a older guy, much too old, much too fearful, or much too sickly to board the ships that would sail halfway around the world. And he will be
Mm,
there, or one of them would always be there seeing the ships that were about to sail. It'll be like, "Don't go. It's going to go poorly. You guys are going to capsize. You don't even know what's out there. We're not good
yeah,
enough for this," right? And this is a mentality that comes from your household. Your parents will
yeah.
disincentivize you to do anything that is thinking outside of the box, or not all of them, but it is a trend. You'll
Mhm,
more often than not you'll find families where the parents will disincentivize you from thinking outside of the box. Like
mhm.
personally, my parents wanted me to join the navy, to go and work in the subway, to go and get a degree. And after I get my degree, I find this job in an office, and it was never really for me. I was always too much of a bit of an anarchist. I don't do well with schedules, putting on a tie. I don't do well with this. So when I started working as a tour guide, and again, as I said, as a Portuguese, I do well, right, economically. So I was very happy. I was thrilled. and I was telling about my parents on how my life was improving economically since I decided to take this path. And literally, I've been a tour guide for like 10 years. It was only truly after the pandemic that I started like making better bank. But literally, my mother still doesn't believe me. She doesn't believe me. Like I have shown them because I get tips, right? And I show them like cash. I show them my bank account, and I show them like I diversify my investments and all. I show like I don't know, like PayPal, like crypto stuff. I show them. I show my mom. My mom is like, "How are you doing this? Where is this coming from? You're up to something you shouldn't be." I'm like, "No, you see me outside. Like you see me outside of the home going every day. I exit at 9 a.m. I come out at like 11 p.m. sometimes. I'm working. This is the profit of my work." But it's like, but how? You didn't get a degree in this. You dress like a hobo. Like, how can this be, right? And I'm like, Mom, just this is the mentality, So it's hard
Yeah.
to break away from that, really.
Yeah. It's great. I think it's great. I think it's, one thing I feel about Portugal and the people I speak to is that we have the potential for a lot of positivity. And I think
Oh yeah,
we're relatively small countries so that we can affect change. That's one of the things I want to try to do is that when people come in from outside and they immigrate into Portugal, become expats, that they kind of get a better understanding of the culture here, a better understanding about the Portuguese feeling and the vibe. And so we can contribute to helping us all benefit in this beautiful country. And Andre, I'd like to say thank you so much. Really fascinating. You're such a great speaker, and I'd actually love to do another podcast with you sometime in the future. And where can everybody get in contact with you and have a great chat, a great talk, and to walk around and you show them your favorite sites of Lisbon? How would you best sort of advertise people get to you?
Well,
Contact
first
you.
of all, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was indeed a
Welcome.
pleasure. It's always good to meet minds, especially foreigners who are now part of the Portuguese, I guess, and they
Yeah, I guess.
develop things and bring alertness to problems, but also qualities and advantages the country brings. So thank you for having me. I will definitely be up to sitting down and having another one. Um, but yeah, you said it in the very beginning. The easiest way or the only public way that people can reach me now is through Instagram. But I'm very bad at keeping track of Instagram. But it will be truly the only way, like at Walking with Andre. You said it correctly in
Mm-hmm.
the beginning. It
Yeah.
will truly be the easiest way for people to reach me. But
Okay.
usually tours that I do now is I come by recommendation or I'm affiliated with
Oh,
companies and
really?
they pair me with
Fantastic.
people.
They book you in,
Um,
and
yeah, at one point
okay.
I think some years from now, perhaps. I don't know, because now I technically grind, I guess.
Yeah.
My father worked in a bank his whole life. I'm not big on banks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get a home, but without getting a mortgage. I want to buy it
Mm-hmm.
cash. So
Yeah.
I've been grinding a lot. So I'm affiliated with like some, I don't even like 25 different tour companies. I don't know, but some
Yeah.
years from now, I probably will try to cut the middleman, so to speak, and I will make my own thing. But yeah,
Great.
at Walking with
Great.
Andre on Instagram will be the easiest way. Yeah.
Cool,
So
man.
thank you once
Great.
more for having me.
Yeah, no, you're so welcome. Thank you so much, Andre. Thank you. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. Out. Did you know that Portuguese bank accounts can sometimes be frozen by the authorities? As someone who's traveled extensively and now runs a business here in Portugal, I value freedom, seamless usability, and bulletproof security. That's why I can't say enough good things about Revolut. With a Revolut account as your backup, you'll still be able to pay bills, receive payments, and keep everything running smoothly, even if you're not in the country. Revolut gives you multi-currency accounts, lets you spend in over 150 currencies at interbank rates, and provides advanced security features like instant card freeze, disposable virtual cards, and safe online shopping. And an app that's as intuitive as it gets. To help support Podcast Portugal, and if you're thinking about setting up a bank account as a backup, click the link in the show notes to sign up for a new Revolut account. It's a win-win situation. You get all the benefits of Revolut, and every time someone signs up, Revolut rewards Podcast Portugal with €40. Revolut. Freedom in your pocket. Sign up today and show your support for Podcast Portugal.
I need a monster now.